if you've driven by anywhere, your neighborhood, where you work, on the way to the grocery store or coffee, and you've seen a flood in the middle of the road, you now know that is caused by one thing and one thing only. Welcome to the Royal Flush Podcast. My name is John Overy, the VP of Sales here at Royal Flush. And in this podcast, we cover the ever-growing ins and outs of our state-of-the-art pipelining company here at Royal Flush. In this episode, we talk about underground storm drains, catch basins, what they really are. We define it. We help you understand what's been going on with the Southern Rhode Island infrastructure and all the crazy rain that we've been having and the impact it has on our communities. So have a listen, stay tuned. I think you're definitely going to learn something in this episode. What the hell is pipeline? 99% of people don't know what we do.
Pipelining is a way of making a repair to a sewer line or a drain pipe without having to dig it.
We're going to basically put a new pipe inside your old pipe, and what we do is really, really cool.
Ultraviolet light.
Without a doubt, is the coolest technology that we have.
Mark is the most knowledgeable pipeliner, certainly in New England, that I know.
So I always say, listen, I got the best team in the game, and it shows itself in situations like that. You got trailers loaded with every inch of equipment these guys could possibly need. Then you have that whole lining rig that's got everything. And you've got 4 to 5 guys that are going to show up there that are these technically trained guys that all are professionals at their job.
Very simple. We're going to be the biggest pipelining company in New England.
Today we're going to talk about something extremely exciting, storm drains, what's been going on specifically here in southern New England and Rhode Island and southern Massachusetts and Connecticut and all across the country. We've been having some crazy weather. And so if you've ever gone to a parking lot, drive down the road, and you've seen the street flooded from the crazy rains we've been having, I want to go in depth and tell you what that means, what's actually happening, and more importantly, the cause of some of these issues. There's been a lot of destruction here in Massachusetts and Rhode Island and all across the country, and I think it's an important thing that is really being overlooked on the privatized side of businesses who own and manage and run a building, a facility, and have a parking lot, and then certainly on the municipal end with cities and towns. And so a storm drain are the grates, in the side of the road, right? You see them. They're about 2 feet by 2 feet. I was joking with you earlier today, Kyle, that if anybody's seen the movie It, where the clown lives with the balloon in the sewer, that's a storm drain, right? And so here's the functionality of what they are and really what they're supposed to do. If we have what we call stormwater, it rains out, right? Our house has a gutter system on it that takes the rain from the roof into the gutters, into a downspout, onto the ground usually. Our roads, you got to think about, is really just a big bowl. It's just going to collect all of these crazy, thousands of gallons and whatever measure I can't even describe of the rain that's going to fall, inches at a time recently with these crazy storms. So that's just going to collect on the pavement. It has to go somewhere, right? It's either going to decipher into the earth, or each of these roads that we have, highways, side roads, whatever, has storm drain systems. And so if people might not realize, our roads are not flat, actually. I don't know if you know this, Kyle. Roads aren't flat. Roads are pitched on a very slight angle. They're crowned. Football field's actually crowned too. It's not flat. And that's on purpose, where it's going to take that rainwater and it's going to shed it off to the sides of the road. And this is where you would find a storm drain, right? There's going to be grates. Maybe if you're driving down your neighborhood every 300, 500 feet in the side of the road, that's going to collect all the water that's come down from the sky, and it's going to put it into this, what we call a catch basin. This is basically a concrete box, a tube, a circle, whatever. It's going to collect the water, right? It's going to hold it. And then these catch basins, 99% of the time, are connected to each other, right? So again, if we have a nice mile stretch road, we might have 10 catch basins, and those catch basins are going to connect to each other with a big pipe under the ground, usually 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 inches, that are going to connect each catch basin to another. And at one point, that catch basin will go somewhere. Those pipes will go somewhere, either to a runoff area, maybe to the sewage treatment plant, wherever. Could just dump at the end of a cul-de-sac. If you've ever seen a new development, okay, anybody who's in a new development, what you'll see is the road, and they'll have this trough, usually with stones and runoff, and that'll be filled with water all the time. That's where the stormwater is going to run off, right? So what's happening? Here's what's happening specifically in Rhode Island and southern Massachusetts. As we said many times, we have the oldest infrastructure in America. These storm drains are 40, 50, 60, 100 years old, and they are not being properly kept up. And so here's what that really means. And here's the flooding and kind of the cause and the effect. So we're filming this, what the hell is today? Tuesday. Last week we had 3 inches of rain over the span of 2 days. And there's many areas across the state that incurred flooding. Now, this isn't flooding from a river being overflowed or a backup. A lot of this flooding in cities and towns were due to basically the failing infrastructure or the lack of performance of the storm drains in the street. So when you drive down a road and you've got, a mile of pavement, that's perfectly fine. It's raining out, you're going slow, you have your windshield wipers on, and there's a section of road that's underwater. And you drive through it and you slow, it creates a huge puddle, and then it goes out. What's happening there is the storm drain in that area is not performing properly. And so here's what that means. Either that catch basin, this big square block on the side of the road that all that water is funneling into, is filled with nasty stuff. That could be filled with debris, sand, dirt. Could be filled up to the top. Could be 8, 10, 12, 15 feet deep, filled with nasty stuff. Or the pipes that are connecting each catch basin to each catch basin, those pipes are filled up with sand and dirt and debris. Kyle's going to put on a couple of pictures here throughout what we're talking about to show you some visual aids. But imagine you have a 12-inch pipe from a catch basin to another catch basin, and that pipe is filled up halfway with sand. So now what was 12 inches is really like 4 on the top. And you have, millions of gallons of water being flooded into this catch basin and trying to be pushed down this pipe, and it just has nowhere to go. That basin overflows, backs up onto the street, causes a flood. It's happening continuously over and over and over and over again, all across southern New England.
What does the maintenance look like for a storm drain? Like before any catastrophe happens, how does someone like a property manager, town or city, how do they, keep up with a storm drain?
For somebody to upkeep and maintain them, you really should contact a company who specializes in jetting and vacuuming. Right? We at Royal Flush don't actually specialize in that. We work with a lot of great people that do. And depending on your area or your problem, at a minimum, it should really be looked at and addressed once a year. And an ideal circumstance, depending on the amount of people and the size of the parking lot, it should be twice a year. It should be, usually like a late spring and end of summer type of deal, right? So the spring can kind of get all the winter debris that's been on the ground. I mentioned this to you in the past, Kyle. When we have snowstorms, the trucks come by and they salt and sand the roads. That's for our safety. Where do you think all that salt and sand goes after we get 3 inches of rain? Now, you see these trucks. They are massive dump trucks that hold, 10, 15, 20, hundreds of yards of sand and salt. And I bet you, if I had to guess and pick a number, totally guess, in the state of Rhode Island, if we have a storm that's 6 to 12 inches, there are probably over 1,000 trucks, probably more, on the road salting and sanding. Let's just say each truck holds 10 yards of sand and salt, or sand or salt. 1,000 times 10, I can't do that math. I think that's 100,000 yards. A million?
Be 10,000. Wait, you said?
If we have 1,000 trucks at 10 yards each.
Yeah, so 10,000 yards.
10,000 yards of sand. That's a lot of sand. We're probably we can maybe do some, that's probably enough to fill the Empire State Building with sand. It's a lot of sand. That's all going to grow into the storm drains in those pipes. There's nowhere for it to go. And if we're not maintaining and getting that sand out, the sand's going to build. Imagine if we haven't cleaned it in 5 years. You have 5 years of sand and salt and just natural earth debris built up in it, right? It's going to fail. And so maintaining that and being proactive, right? In our business of plumbing and what we do, people aren't really proactive. That's okay to say that. It's very reactive. This is a scenario that you have to be proactive in. You have to upkeep the underground infrastructure of these storm drains so you don't have a catastrophic issue in a parking lot. And, imagine you got 50 million gallons of water, 4 inches thick in your parking lot that holds 100 cars. You know what you're going to have? A sinkhole. You're going to cause a massive hole because the asphalt and the earth is not meant to hold all that water in one spot. You're going to put the hole. It's going to be so dangerous. Somebody's going to get hurt. It's going to cost you 10 times more money to fix something than it would be to maintain it, twice a year or at a minimum once a year, to have a company come and wash out the catch basin, suck out all the nasty sand, and clean the pipe, right? That's really all you need to do. It's a pretty simple fix. So I always like to say, this whole system, right? We call this a system, these pipes and these drains and everything. These are installed and designed by engineers, okay? There's people way smarter than me and you on what the goal is and the side and all these mathematical equations and approvals and cities and all this engineering. So certainly there could be a one-off in an area that a pipe or a storm drain is not properly sized. However, in the grand scheme of things, there's no way that every single pipe across the state is improper. So if we just take it on the face that the pipes are designed to do what they're supposed to do, right? We have to go to the fact that they are not being maintained properly, thus causing the flooding. It's the only thing that can happen. If we have a pipe that's the right size, it's been designed and engineered by many, many smart people and installed properly, we have to take that for granted. The only thing that can be assumed is that they are not being performed and kept up the way that they're supposed to be. So if you own a business or you have what we call a private parking lot, right? I mean, how many times you go by a big, beautiful building and the gargantuan fits 1,000 cars. That parking lot has storm drains collecting all the water. Where's the water going to go? It has to go somewhere, right? Into these drains under the ground. The owner, the manager, the facility director, whoever it is, you are responsible for the upkeep of those storm drains, right? I guarantee you 99% of these property owners, property managers, they don't even know, right? It's just something you're not thinking of. So imagine you have a big storm last night, you come into work with your 100 people, and they can't park in the parking lot because it's just flooded with 3 inches of water, right? What are you going to, your business is going to be closed for that day. It's a massive disruption. You have to maintain and clean out those catch basins. The way to do that is by hydrojetting and vacuuming out all that nasty debris. You get all the stuff loose with the water, you suck it out, you get all that nasty stuff out. That's of the storm basin, right, the catch basin. Then you got to do the same thing with the pipes, kind of what we do at Royal Flush. You got to get all that nasty sand and debris that's collected in the pipe to go from catch basin to catch basin. You got to get that out. You got to get that stuff out of the pipe so the water can flow properly. And then that's where somebody like us at Royal Flush could potentially come in and camera and video inspect those pipes to see if there's something going on. Now, hopefully it is just debris and nasty stuff built up, but maybe there's something a little more catastrophic that's going on with that pipe. Maybe it's cracked, damaged, broken, severed, whatever it is. Maybe that's causing or leading to the flooding as well. But the first step is I want to do a PSA for cities, towns, municipal workers, and if you own anything yourself, we have to start investing time and money into the upkeep and maintenance of these storm drains around our state, because the amount of flooding is out of control. It's an epidemic with the weather we've been having recently. It never was like this before. And it's simply because, due to no fault of anybody's own, no, people aren't intentionally ignoring these. Either it's a lack of education on how to properly upkeep them, or it's a simple budget thing. But what I always tell you, it's going to cost a whole hell of a lot more money to fix it afterwards than it would be to maintain or properly go on a maintenance plan to clean and jet and vac those storm drains properly. And so I want to wrap it up with this. If you've driven by anywhere, your neighborhood, where you work, on the way to the grocery store or coffee, and you've seen a flood in the middle of the road, you now know that is caused by one thing and one thing only: a failure in the storm drain system. And that is due to either the storm drain itself, where it lives, being broken, cracked, filled with debris, and the water not being able to go in and bubbling out, or the pipes that connect the storm drains under the ground. And so those pipes need to be cleaned, jetted, and vacuumed so they can be properly flowing. So when we get the next crazy storm, because it's coming, they're not going to stop, all that water can dissipate into the storm drain system, go where it needs to go, and not disrupt everybody's life and cause catastrophic damages. Because that's what's going on right now. Matt, we've got all this water on the street. You're going to start creating sinkholes. You're going to have massive erosion. You're going to have people who can't get one place to another safely. You're going to cause accidents. You might have road closures. There's all types of ramifications that happen that we don't think about just from a rainstorm. And a drain not being properly maintained or cleaned. And so the goal of this was to hopefully educate you on what's going on with these crazy puddles you see, what the cause is, what the fix is, what the effect is, and If I could ask anybody who's in charge of any of these things or involved in a privatized business that owns a parking lot that has had this issue, get your storm drains maintained, get them cleaned out, get them jet invacted, and those issues will not happen again.